At my son's graduation, my parents told me I had to give his college fund to my nephew instead. My husband laughed and said, "That's funny, because we moved the money last month." They started screaming when they saw. I always knew my parents favored my brother over me, but I never thought they'd go this far. My son Alex had just graduated from high school. My husband and I had been saving for his college fund since the day he was born. It wasn't an extravagant amount, but it was enough to cover tuition at a good state school without student loans. We were proud of our son, proud of our planning, proud that he'd have opportunities we never had. We invited the family to a dinner celebration, just a small gathering at a nice restaurant. My parents came, my brother, his wife, and their son Tyler. I should have known something was off when my mother kept looking at me with that expectant, tight-lipped smile, the one that always meant she was about to say something she knew I wouldn't like. Sure enough, midway through the meal, she cleared her throat and, in the most casual voice, said, "So, about Alex's college fund." I blinked. "What about it?" She took a sip of wine. "Well, your brother and his family have been struggling, you know, and Tyler's going to need a college fund too." I felt my stomach turn cold. My brother and his wife made bad financial decisions constantly, new cars, luxury vacations, and home renovations they couldn't afford. Meanwhile, we had lived modestly, choosing to save instead. My father chimed in, "We all think it would be best if you gave the fund to Tyler instead. He needs it more." There was silence, the kind that crushes your chest and makes your ears ring. Alex's face fell, his hands tightening around his fork. My husband Dan stared at them like they had just suggested we set the house on fire for warmth. Then he laughed, a full, deep, genuine belly laugh. "That's funny," he said, shaking his head, "because we moved the money last month." My parents' smiles faltered. "What?" My mother snapped. Dan turned to me, grinning. "You want to tell them, honey?" I swallowed my rage and leaned forward. "We knew something like this might happen, so we moved Alex's fund into an account you can't touch, even if we wanted to give it to Tyler, which we don't. We legally can't anymore." That's when the screaming started. My mother turned red, practically foaming at the mouth. "You selfish, ungrateful brat. After everything we've done for you." My father slammed his fist on the table. "Family helps family. Tyler deserves just as much as Alex." My brother sat there, arms crossed, not even bothering to argue. His wife had the gall to look smug, like she had expected us to roll over and hand it over without question. Tyler, for his part, looked uncomfortable, but he wasn't protesting. Then Dan, calm as ever, hit them with the real kicker. "Oh, and by the way, we've updated our will. You two aren't getting a penny from us. Alex will inherit everything." My mother shrieked like a banshee. People were staring, the waiter froze mid-step, unsure whether to intervene or run for cover. "You'll regret this." My father roared. Dan wiped his mouth with his napkin. "I really don't think we will." Then we got up, paid for our meal, and left them sitting there, fuming. I thought that was the end of it. I thought they'd cut us off, disown us, maybe finally leave us alone. I was wrong. Because 3 days later, they showed up at our house with a lawyer, and that's when things got ugly. When I saw my parents standing on our porch with a lawyer, I almost laughed, almost. Dan was in the kitchen making coffee. Alex was in his room, probably texting his friends about the disaster at dinner. I had been enjoying a quiet morning until I opened the door. My mother's face was tight with barely contained rage. My father looked smug, like he already knew he'd win. The lawyer, a thin man with glasses, just looked tired. "What do you want?" I asked, crossing my arms. My mother sniffed, tilting her chin up. "We're here to talk about the college fund." I frowned. "We already talked about it. It's not happening." The lawyer cleared his throat and pulled out a folder. "Your parents have filed a claim. They believe they have legal rights to the money." I stared. "What?" My father smirked. "That fund was created while you were under our roof. We supported you financially for years, and we believe that entitles us to a say in where that money goes." For a moment, I actually thought I had misheard him. Then I realized he was serious. Dan appeared behind me, coffee in hand. He looked at them, then at me, then back at them. "You can't be serious." "Oh, we are," my mother said, her voice dripping with self-righteousness. "And we're willing to take this to court." Dan took a slow sip of coffee. "Great. Can't wait." The lawyer hesitated. "If we could just," Dan held up a hand. No. Let them finish. I want to hear this." My father's smirk grew. "If you don't agree to transfer the money, we'll sue, and we'll win." I almost laughed, almost. But then I saw it, the look in my mother's eyes, the pure smug certainty, and suddenly a sickening thought hit me. They thought they had something real. I stepped forward. "What did you do?" My mother blinked innocently. "Whatever do you mean?" I clenched my fists. "What did you do?" She smiled, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. "We may have spoken to someone, a friend of a friend, about accounts that minors open while still dependent on their parents, about how certain funds can be contested if..." Dan put a hand on my shoulder, studying me. "You tried to steal from our son," he said, his voice low and dangerous. My father waved a hand. "It's not stealing if it belongs to the family." I saw red. Dan squeezed my shoulder once before stepping in front of me. "Okay, here's what's going to happen. You're going to leave. We're going to call our lawyer, and if you try this, we will bear you in court. And when you lose, you'll never see us or Alex again." My mother scoffed. "You wouldn't?" Dan grinned. "Try me." There was silence. Then my mother turned on her heel. "Fine, but don't expect an invitation to Christmas." "Oh no," I deadpanned. "Whatever will we do?" They stormed off. The lawyer muttered an apology and scurried after them. I exhaled, hands still shaking. They're not done, Dan nodded. Nope. And I was right, because a week later, my parents actually filed a lawsuit, and that's when things really got insane. The lawsuit from hell. When we got the official notice, I wanted to scream. My parents had actually sued us, not just an empty threat, a real lawsuit filed, stamped, sitting in my hands like a bomb waiting to go off. Dan read over his face, unreadable. Alex sat at the kitchen table, his jaw tight. Are they really trying to take my college money? I swallowed. It looks like it. Dan let out a low whistle. They must have found a lawyer just desperate enough to take this joke of a case. I read through the papers again. Their claim was insane. They argued that because we started saving while I was still under their financial support, they had a stake in the fund, that transferring it without their knowledge was unjust enrichment, that it was meant to be shared among family. It was absurd, but not impossible to fight. Dan's grin was sharp. Oh, we're going to make them regret this. The first court date, we lawyered up. Our attorney, Susan, was a shark in human form. She took one look at the case and laughed. This is nonsense, she said, flipping through the pages. But that doesn't mean they won't waste your time and money trying to make it a problem. And that's exactly what they did. The first court date was a circus. My parents sat with their lawyer, some middle-aged guy who looked embarrassed to even be there. My brother and his wife sat behind them, acting like they were owed this money. And then there was their evidence. My father stood and confidently declared that he had proof the money belonged to them. He handed over printouts of old emails from me to Dan where we talked about setting up Alex's fund. Dan squinted at the papers. These are from 18 years ago. The judge was unimpressed. Do you have anything more recent? My father hesitated. Well, no. You can click on share and more to see if there is a part 2.